Welcome to the Calder Farmstead.
Now the Ice Hawks back out to center in transition. Carlson with Quenneville 2-on-1. Right when Carlson comes, Quenneville scores!
Here's a chance for Carrick. Fighting scores! Off the face-off! Up in Zeminger. Pulled back to Werenski. Has it. Shoots one. Bounces off a man. 5 seconds left. Werenski. Another jam on the shot. Turning and firing. They go! They score! They score! Now they catch each other. They both go right over the top. Matching rights to one another. McDermott gets the helmet off of Cassie.
And now, with 9 minutes gone in overtime, the Bears breaking out right side with Bear. Looks like cutting to the net. Bear will score!
And here are your hosts, Cece and Sean.
Hello and greetings from the Mile High city of Denver, Colorado.
And Lula, Sweden.
Welcome to the Calder Farmstead podcast, episode number 94 for Friday, April 1st, 2022. No fooling. If you were hoping for a podcast featuring tips on how to avoid rutting your farmland during a wet spring season, we are not going to be much help. This is an American Hockey League podcast, and my name is CC Hockley, the AHL editor of Full Press Hockey.
And I'm Sean O'Brien from Stats Track and the AHL's only league-wide analytics guy.
I know he hates it when I say this, but he's kind of a big deal.
I'm not.
Thank you all for tuning in. We really appreciate it.
And if you're new into hearing CC and I talk about hockey, we're going to preview some of the matchups in the upcoming weekend in the American Hockey League for you. We both watch a lot of AHL games. We're going to talk about what we see when we watch the film, as well as use some advanced stats to help us break it down. If that's new to you, you may want to head over to our podcast feed or YouTube channel, wherever you're listening to us from, and check out episode 0. It's a short primer on some of the stats we're going to be talking about, as well as how we view what's important on the ice. So if you're new to some of the more advanced hockey stats terms like PDO or the point shares model, or newer hockey terms like controlled zone entries, go check that out so you better be able to pick up what we're putting down. I promise it's not that nerdy or technical. It's only 20 minutes, and let's be honest, you wasted 20 minutes doing anything but engaging in Szechuan season. You'll never get that time or lost Szechuan sauce back. So next time, why not spend a little more time with us talking hockey?
I feel like we stepped into a Rick and Morty episode here or something.
Rick! Sorry, I can't do more. Morty, tell me about the playoffs.
I haven't watched enough of that show to do any impressions, but I assure you, I would give it a go if I had. You know me.
It's not a good one. Maybe
No.
edit that out.
No, that was fine. You gave it a go. Solid 6 out of 10 from what I know. Anyway, let's talk playoff probability updates. Before we get into previewing the weekend ahead of us, we got some playoff models and probabilities to update. So we do have playoff races to talk about here quickly. Let's dive into those. The race in the Atlantic has a new horse in it. The Hartford Wolfpack, who were previously all but locked at a 99.4% chance to make the playoffs, they have dropped, and they are now at 73.5%. Bridgeport has surged ahead of Wilkes-Barre Scranton here and is at 71.1%, while Wilkes-Barre Scranton, the Baby Pens, are at 63.6%. 63.6%. Easy for me to say. Hershey is still at 83.6%, while the Phantoms are sitting at a very, very paltry 8.1%. The sliver keeps dwindling, I think, as a fan put it on social media today. We're going to talk about the Sound Tigers later on in our weekend preview for the Atlantic. We're going to bring a friend on as well. So let's use this time to talk about Hartford. Sean, what has happened to the Wolfpack?
Wow, going 2-8 since March 12th without even getting to OT in any of those losses sure doesn't help, especially losing 2 of those directly to Wilkes-Barre Scranton. That also has shot a couple holes in their boat. On March 10th, their 2-week rolling puck luck was 100.8. Since then, it's been 97.8, 94.2, and 97.2. Currently, they are 23rd in the league in the entire AHL in rolling 2-week estimated PDO. Bridgeport is first. Wilkes-Barre Scranton is 5th. So that's not doing them any favors. Not getting hot at the right time. Just not getting good puck luck at the right time. I also think there's something up with Keith Kinkade too. He looks off to me, but I can't quite place my finger on it. His puck tracking is slower. His movement looks a lot busier and more erratic than it was earlier in the season. He seems to be getting shaken up by things happening right in front of him a little more easily. If nothing else, his recent results certainly suggest something is going on, but something also looks off with him. But I can't quite place it if it's like he's playing through an injury or if, something's going on in his own mind. I can tell you. They also have roster depth problems. Johnny B. Good is gone. Tim Gettinger is gone. Tanner Fritz is ice cold. So is Austin Rushoff. And it's also probably going to take a minute for their new additions in Max Latunov and Merkley to get up to speed with systems and line chemistry and so on. I still think they're pretty safe here. But yeah, the panic level in Hartford right now is exponentially higher than it was 2 weeks ago when they were, I think, 99% or 97%. And for good reason. From my view, though, this is still primarily a race between Bridgeport and Wilkes-Barre Scranton for the last spots. Given the additions that Wilkes-Barre Scranton has made from the NCAA and so on, I think they'll be the team that emerges, but very much in an I'm Ron Burgundy kind of fashion, as opposed to with definite conviction. But we'll see. I think Hartford is ultimately going to, maybe stumble backwards into the playoffs here, but I think they'll be okay. Should, when we get to the first round, well, let's hope they get a favorable matchup and can break the curse of the whale. But I'm not feeling great about that part of it, but they should still make the playoffs.
Who put that question mark after Hartford's playoff probability? Oh, well, hey, let's pivot here. Let's go to the North Division. The North is still an open race, but it feels like it's really down to Belleville and Rochester here. Belleville is a 55.6%. They have a 55.6% chance to make the playoffs. The Amerks are a 73.9% chance. They have one to make the postseason. Syracuse is the next closest at 86.1%. Toronto and Laval, both north of 88% and north of the border, for those that don't know. How would you think this shakes out, Sean, given what we've learned in the past? Well, given what we've learned in the week that has passed.
I mean, I like to think that the week that has passed has made me look smart for what I said last time. I said last week I thought the Marlies would be fine, and that I thought it was going to be Belleville that got caught by the bear here. Michael Belzotto was a big loss for them. Adding Zach Senyshyn helps, but neither of the college players they added in addition to that really excite me. I think Mads Sogard has been better than Gustafsson recently, so that call-up kind of send-down swap that happened really doesn't help them. Michael McNiven is slated as the backup, which also isn't a good thing, as he's never shown to be a reliable AHL starter down the stretch. Andrew Agazzino and Jake Lucchini have also cooled off a lot recently. On the other side, the Amerks got an important piece in Mark Alt to shore up the defense. We talked about that last episode and what I think that means. He looked good in the first game that they played the other night. Laval bulked up on scoring depth at the deadline. We're going to talk about that. And the Marlies are embracing the healing powers of Billy Christopoulos at the moment, who has long been someone who's, I think, deserved a genuine AHL look. Belleville also has a rough schedule ahead with games against Springfield and Utica on the road, as well as 15 games in the final month of the season. Only Syracuse and Laval have 15. Everyone else in the race has less games to be played, so they'll be fresher in those games, a good number of which are against Belleville. So that doesn't bode well for Belleville as well. I think Belleville pretty clearly is the favorite to be caught by the bear here, which doesn't mean that they're out, but they need to start making up some ground here as we're running out of runway.
What is everyone racing towards or racing away from when it comes to the bear?
I mean, I guess the chance to be eliminated by Utica in the first round.
I was gonna ask that you further the allegory there, but that works. That works fine. All right, out of the Eastern Conference, out of the North Division, over to the Central Division and the Western Conference. The last playoff race worth discussing here is in the Central. It's still a 3-team race between Texas, Iowa, and Grand Rapids. And hold on to your butts. It's going to be entertaining. Texas takes the lead after a surprising weekend sweep of Milwaukee. They currently sit at a 37.9% chance to make it, while Iowa is slightly behind them at 36.8%, and Grand Rapids slides down to 28.7%. Whew, this is going to be a tight one, Sean. How do you see this shaking out?
I still like Iowa here. Texas has 5 games in April against Chicago, whereas Iowa has none. Iowa also has 2 games against Tucson, who are basically an ECHL team at this point. Iowa and Texas go head-to-head in 4 games in April as well. And Iowa has a slight rest advantage heading into those games. So I think that gives them another tiny little edge there. Grand Rapids also has 3 games against against Cleveland in April, which softens the blow, but they also play Chicago 3 times and travel to Toronto for 2. So those kind of offset the getting to play Cleveland part of it. Texas and Grand Rapids are still certainly alive in this race. One of them is going to make it, but I think Iowa is the safest team here. And in general, it wouldn't shock me to see Texas be the odd man out. I like a lot of the parts of Texas, but as a whole, I think Grand Rapids can get better goaltending from Pickard and Bratstrom down the stretch than Texas can from Scheel and Point or Scheel and Jurasik or somebody else. I think that's the part of me that has Texas being, even though they are a slight edge over here over both teams right now, that's the part of me that is the most concerned. Is I don't trust their goaltending compared to. I like Zane McIntyre a little bit more than either of them, and I still think Derek Baribeau is serviceable.
It's a fair point, very fair point. And the last division, since no miracles happened since the last time we checked in, the Pacific is very much settled, and this is just jockeying for seeding position at this point. Any thoughts for the Pacific in general here, Shawnee?
No, not really. Let me share the graph here. Just, for
kicks and giggles.
Yeah, I'm even sharing the rest of them. So for posterity here, this is the Pacific Division graph.
Tucson at 2.4%.
Tucson made a big jump. I think they were under 1% last time. So yeah, they're now 2.4. Yeah,
woo!
Huge. Ontario is currently praying that Henderson finishes 7th, and that the Reign, who seem pretty locked into 2nd, but that's where they want to end up. Because Ontario is a bit light on the roster depth right now. They're still competitive we'll talk about that when we get to Ontario, but Henderson is literally icing an emergency backup goalie in Dylan Kelly right now, because apparently there are literally no other goalies available to them. Like none. Dylan Kelly is a goalie who struggles to be a competent starter at the SPHL level. And Henderson is walking him out there to play multiple games. And that's crazy to me. But here we are. Vegas, if they don't make the playoffs, will send them back Logan Thompson, and then it's a whole nother story. But until that time, Vegas very well may not make the playoffs, which would be even crazier. But it's strange. I think I would rather play David Ayers than Dylan Kelly at this exact moment.
Wow.
But should Ontario not get reinforcement in a timely fashion from LA, Henderson's probably the only team they're going to be favored over in the first round, assuming that Henderson doesn't get reinforcements or a healthy AHL caliber goalie between now and May, which I figured if they were going to get a better goalie, they would have done it by now. But what do I know? The rest of it seems very close. Like Bakersfield playing Abbotsford, Bakersfield playing Colorado, San Diego with reinforcements playing anyone. The only team I'm absolutely convinced, is the top dog here is still Stockton. And after that, I think it's Henderson's clearly the worst right now of the playoff teams. I think Ontario is probably down there. Not that they're bad, but the rest of everyone else is just better. Abbotsford, Bakersfield, Colorado, though, is a, stone cold coin flip for me. I think all of them are capable. I think San Diego, when they get reinforcements, will be right in that mix, and they could make an upset in the first round. So we'll see. But if I'm Ontario, I'm crossing my fingers for Henderson in the first round.
I am very surprised with Billy Christopoulos just a couple days ago signing that PTO with Toronto. I mean, he signed a PTO with Henderson last season. So why didn't Henderson reach out to Billy the Greek? Like that's baffling to me that you would sign an SPHL goaltender over Billy Christopoulos.
I mean, yeah, that one doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And especially too, like there are other ECHL goalies you could have reached out to who have had success at, the AHL level in limited time where, I would point to them and be like, yeah, that's a better option. Like there are so many other goaltenders besides Dylan Kelly. I have no idea why him of everyone, but here we are.
Here we are. Must know somebody on the bench or in the front office somewhere. Shrug. Big old shrug.
Yeah, that one, I didn't look up if he was related to Fred Brathwaite on Elite Prospects. I don't think that seems very likely, though, but...
Stranger things have happened. Stranger things have happened.
There.
Yes. All right. Well, we've gone our first 15 minutes here talking about playoff predictions and the playoff probabilities model. So before we dive into it with Bridgeport and our friend Mitch Anderson from Eyes on Isles, we are going to take a very brief respite. So yes, if you like us, you got the social media link down there, the link tree, linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. Subscribe to YouTube. Well, what am I saying? Stick around. What am I saying? Just stick around. We've only scratched the surface here. We'll be right back. And stay tuned, for crying out loud. What am I doing? Okay, I think it's time we start previewing the weekend ahead of us. And we got an old friend of the program coming back on the show. He's from the Eyes on Isles podcast. Don't say that too fast or else your tongue is going to twist up into a nice, neat little knot. Anyway, back on the show, covering the Bridgeport
Sound
Islanders.
Tigers. That is the name.
Oh, Mitch Anderson back on the program. Mitch, how you doing, bud?
Good. Try to say that nice nittle. I can't even say the nice knot. I can't do it. What you just said afterwards, I can't do that at all. So like, there you go. That was.
I just realized, like, I back end one tongue twister to another. I'm like, well, okay. Well, I guess my speaking privileges aren't revoked quite yet in the show. It's early though. There's a lot of room to make mistakes. But Mitch, yeah, thank you for coming on the program. We always enjoy talking Bridgeport with you. And
anytime. I just like that you guys still call it Sound Tigers. It's hilarious. I
Absolutely.
know why. I still call them the Islanders just because it makes it easier for me, kind of thing.
Sure.
Forever Sound Tigers. Their website browser still has Sound Tigers on it. To me, that's all the proof I need.
Yeah, that's super funny. Oh, well, hey, we got a weekend to preview. Speaking of the Sound Tigers, Islanders, whatever you prefer to call Bridgeport these days. But they are surging. They are surging in the right direction. And as one of the memes that we put out on the Calder Farmstead put it, you got the Terminator with the Sound Tigers logo on it, and the little anime girl huddled beneath the desk with Wilkes-Barre Scranton's logo on it. That's what they're like right now, and that's who they're facing Saturday at 6:05 p.m. Eastern in, well, what is it? The Mohegan Sun Arena, I believe that's what it's called.
Sun Plaza, in Wilkes-Barre Scranton. It has like a funky
there you go.
name. It's like the arena in the plaza or something goofy like that. But it's a nice building. It's in a weird place though in Wilkes-Barre Scranton. We stayed right across from it the one time, and there's not much by it yet, but they're building stuff. So
sure, yeah, build it and they will come, or at least that's what they're hoping. Sunday 3 p.m. and they're going to be back in Bridgeport. They are going to be hosting the Lehigh Valley Phantoms. So let's begin. Bridgeport went 7-4 in the month of March and was at a 68.2% points percentage. For perspective, they went 4-6 in February with a 45% points percentage. So improving, needless to say. What's changed so much for the Sound Tigers that's enabled them to go on this run? Mitch, we're going to defer to Sean real quick, and then we'll get your thoughts.
Well, I mean, first of all, let's not get it too twisted here. The Sound Tigers have had a rolling XPDO north of 102 for 3 of the 4 weeks in March, and I believe their current one is like 111. So yeah, there's a puck luck element to their success, but that's not telling the entire story here. They're defending better. They're moving the puck in transition better. The Sound Tigers are actually generating rush chances, something that when we watched them previously felt like it was this mythical concept that they could never actually achieve. But that's changed a lot now recently. They're executing, plays through the neutral zone, plays to get breakouts going at a much more efficient clip. They're also getting guys back that have missed a lot of time. Austin Zarnick is a point per game player in the AHL. He's played 28 of their 62 games. Michael Dowd-Cole is a useful middle six forward in the AHL. He's played 29 of 62. Robin Salo, who I know just got called back up again, I think, to New York. He's played 33 of 62. He's probably their best defenseman. We also thought this team wasn't spectacular in the preseason, but we thought they'd be decent. The roster we saw in the preseason, though, has largely vanished for big stretches of this season, as the Islanders were basically patient zero in the NHL and COVID cases for a while. The Sound Tigers, had to send a bunch of guys up to the Islanders to fill those gaps, as well as have guys like Timoshev return to the SHL and Anatoly Golashev left after the promises that were apparently made to him by the Islanders brass were not fulfilled. And as we've seen with other teams, you lose 5 guys you're counting on for scoring and replace them with ECHLers. Well, as we've said many times in the past, you replace the donkeys with you replace the stallions with donkeys, and the wagon's not going to go the same speed. So that's been, I think, a fair portion of what's happened in Bridgeport to this point, and the fact that they're getting those guys back so they're able to have a better, more balanced roster that actually features more genuine AHL talent that can move the puck. We're seeing the results of that, and they're getting lucky. So, yeah, it's not a huge shock. Don't get me wrong. Having Brent Thompson behind the bench still worries me if I'm a Bridgeport fan, but that's a story for another time, and we've kind of gone there enough as it is this season.
Well, I think what I would add to that is Simon Holmstrom and how the game has slowed down for him of late. The Islanders, both the NHL and AHL ones, have been looking for him to essentially take that step up. And for him to do so, the game had to slow down for him because he's not a high skill player. He's got skills, but his calling card is how intelligent he is, how he sees the game, how he opens up space. And the only way he was going to do that is if the game started slowing down for him. And for a while now, he's in year 3, that wasn't happening. But over the last month or so, you started seeing that taking place, and Simon Holmstrom using his intelligence to open up space because the game started slowing down for him. So you add all that to it, and then you got Simon Holmstrom kicking up. Excellent stuff. And then Corey Schneider. Like, what the hell is going on with Corey Schneider where he's stopping pucks like he used to, 10 years ago? Where did that come from? Because that is a big factor with what's helping these Bridgeport Islanders right now.
And I think, too, we always say that you can't remove a goaltender from this, the defense that's in front of him. I think he's also benefited a lot from what I said about, I remember the games we watched for Bridgeport earlier in the year, and it was like a comedy of errors watching them try and break the puck out. Like, they just kept getting pinned in their zone, time and time again on dump and chase pucks because they couldn't get a pass out of their zone. And that's going to bury your goaltender time and time again because, the more time another team spends in the offensive zone, the more likely they are to score. So, yeah, I think Schneider's definitely, managed to find the good voodoo that he's needed to help them along on this run. But I think it's, a little bit of I scratch your back, you scratch mine kind of thing where he's not had these, 4-minute shifts of pressure in his end. That's
important because Skarek was the AHL goalie of the month in January, and they weren't doing necessarily well then. So that's a really good point because you got good goaltending and not doing well. And now you've got it. What's the difference? Like you're saying, defense.
And I think that's something too, because I remember, and we talk about this a little bit kind of off camera between CC and I, that like Keith Kinkade was someone who was, I think, pissed that Skarek won it over him. And he was super high. And they were close. They were very close. You could have made a case for one or the other, but now he has looked rather flat. So, not quite the best look from Keith Kinkade, but yeah, they've definitely gotten better in all areas. It seems like at the right time. I remember when I was reading an article and quoted Chris Tierney. He's like, yeah, we're going to make a push. And I'm like, okay, Chris, but sure. The big surge they've got back in talent and what that's meant to the game flow and their ability to actually stop other teams. Now I feel really glad that I didn't tweet that out.
Fair enough.
Well, and you mentioned Corey Schneider, and he also with Salo got called up back to the New York Islanders today as well. So you got Ken Appleby the day before that, got reassigned from Worcester. So,
and Appleby's been, very limited sample size this year for sure. Mm-hmm. But it is funny that every time I pull up their charts for goaltending, he is way up at the top in 3, they didn't win any of those games. I don't think he's 1-7 on the year for a goaltending record, but he has a .927 save percentage, which is insane, especially given the fact that they didn't win many of his starts. But Appleby's been, at least in a small vacuum of games, solid for them. So if nothing else, that's maybe going to keep going. I'm not a huge Ken Appleby truther, so I can't really stump for him here. But like the other thing too is like the Islanders seem like they're at least in a position where they need guys called up right now, but like these aren't going to be long-term things as far as I know.
Probably not the when it comes to Corey Schneider. Ilya Sorokin is day to day. He's back in practice. He's feeling all right. So I don't imagine he's going to be out too long. So Corey Schneider is probably going to be back. When it comes to Grant Hutton and Robin Salo, that might be a little bit longer. Scott Mayfield is out 4 to 6 weeks, which is basically the entirety of the NHL season. And that's when Grant Hutton was called up. So that's the emergency he's been called up for. So I imagine he stays. Not a huge loss necessarily for the Bridgeport Islanders, big enough, but they don't want to have to lose him if they don't have to. Robin Salo would be the big one. We're not really sure what he was called up for or what emergency because he's not playing today. So I guess it wasn't that big of an emergency, but there are some guys who are quote unquote banged up. So he might not be. I imagine he'll be there for the weekend games.
Yeah, that would be very beneficial because, like I said, I think he was a big piece in coming back of them being able to break the puck out because Samuel Bolduc has not looked good in that role. And, well, Hutton and Van de Sample have always been kind of merely okay-ish at it. Paul Ledoux also has struggled with it at times this season. I clearly don't trust Seth Helgeson with a puck on a stick, but that seems fair.
I don't think he's there to be the transition or the transporter, right? He's not playing the lead role in the next transporter movie of the franchise.
Wow. Well, one of the names that didn't get mentioned from you guys was Arnaud Durando, and he has been on fire as of late. I tell you what, from the beginning of the season through the end of February, he had a respectable 9 goals, 17 assists for 26 total points in 49 games played. In March, he had 6 goals, 5 assists, 11 total points in 11 games played. Durando was having a solid season, but this production in March, Sean, of course, you first, is it sustainable?
Probably not. So Durando in his AHL career up until this March shot a career average 12.2%, which is a completely reasonable figure and is somewhere in the ballpark of what I think his actual shooting talent is. He shot 25% in March. That's a nope from me. So I think it's safe to say that that's probably unsustainable. However, I see a lot of progress from him in his development. He's taken what were flashes of higher end skill I'd seen in previous seasons and previous viewings of him, even this season, and had those a little more consistently. I still think consistency wise, he has some issues to work through, but the fact that I'm not having to wait 5 or 6 or 7 games to see him do something that pops off the page in the offensive zone or in transition, I think is a very positive sign. Whereas now these are starting to come a little more frequently as he's getting a little bit more comfortable. I doubt he ever becomes a physical player, but his ability to play through contact has at least improved this season. Whereas last season, he literally did everything that he could, it seems, to avoid contact to the point where he was literally passing on 2-on-1s into traffic because someone was coming close to him for contact. He still moved off the puck a little bit easily, but has at least picked up a little bit of battle through some of that contact. Ideally, I'd like him to, come into training camp next season in the 190s for weight. He's like 181, 182 now. Not that that's a small size for him, but I think a little bit more muscle on his frame would help him, work through that contact a little bit easier as he still gets muscled off the puck a little too easily for my liking, especially as his skating, while has gotten better, he doesn't have the breakaway speed to where he can avoid contact in a way that a lot of other smaller guys can. That's why we always say when we talk about someone who's, 5'10", 5'11", 170 pounds, it's like, well, if they can't fly around the rink, they're going to have to put more size on because they're not going to be able to just skate around guys and avoid contact. Durando's 6'1", I believe, off the top of my head, but still only 181, which isn't tiny, but he's also going to have to play through contact because he's not that fast. I think his skating has gotten better this season, but maybe some of that too is he looks faster because he's processing the game faster. But that's a topic for a deeper dive, maybe in the offseason. Long and the short of it, I don't think a point per game clip is sustainable for him. I think he's probably at his best 3/4 point per game player in the AHL based on what I've seen. But I don't think that this is something outrageous that he could never hope to hold on to. It seems a little over. It seems like he's outkicked his coverage a little bit here in the month of March, and I'd expect him to come back a little bit in April and May.
Yeah, he's punching above his quote unquote weight class when it comes to production for sure. Which obviously anyone will take, but you're right. Can he sustain this? He's going to have to do a whole heck of a lot to be able to sustain that. And it's fighting through contact, like you said, but it's really just digging to get those pucks out of the corner. He's great playing behind the net. He's like a Wayne Gretzky back there. A lot of his production comes from playing from behind the net. Well, you can't just go and do that all the time. You got to be able to play from along the wall and then cut to the middle. He doesn't do that enough. And it's working right now. And that's great, but he's going to have to be able to bring that into his game to ascend to the next level. Is that likely? I don't know. That's asking a lot. Like, he's a 3-year vet, if you will, of the AHL, and to bring on this extra skill set is kind of like, I don't know. Sometimes you just can't teach an old dog new tricks. He's not old necessarily, but he's a veteran now, and it's just like you weren't really drafted very high because of these limitations, and I think that's what we're seeing here with him. Probably a really good AHL player, but I don't see an NHL player necessarily.
I don't either, in more that like he could probably be, hey, we need a dude, someone, stubbed their toe coming off the bus. We need a guy to sit in the press box, maybe get like a game or two here and there. Like, if you told me over the next 5 seasons he played 70 NHL games, I'd be like, that seems fair. Like, assuming, 5 here, 10 there, call up here and there. But like, yeah, I don't see an NHL long-term future for him, but he's still young, and there is a lot of margin of error for eyeballing guys like this. But at the same point, like, I think you're right. I think this is the limitations that we've seen from him throughout his career. They're at least limiting him less now, but I still think they ultimately hold him back from being an everyday NHL kind of guy.
Yeah, I think that's just it. We're just seeing the limitations of what he is when it comes to NHL necessarily, but at the AHL, things are going off and he is popping off, and it's excellent to see, helping them push for that playoff spot that they not desperately need, but we desperately want to see them get, because it hasn't really gone that well last year or two type of thing. So it's nice to see, but I think we're peak Durando right now is where we're at.
I would agree with that.
Durando is 4th in scoring for the Bridgeport hockey team. That's my neutral ground. Nice. Yeah, he's behind, of course, Chris Terry, Otto Koivula, and Andrei Andreoff. But yeah, I mean, you've got Bridgeport in 7th place out of 8 teams, but they are, as the meme that we mentioned earlier, they are knocking at the door, trying to track down the Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, and only 2 points behind them and just 1 less game played. So hold on to your butts for that final spot in the Atlantic Division. That's going to be a doozy. Sean, we're going to start off and wrap this up with some keys. And I don't have my keys on me, otherwise I jingle them. But keys to the weekend. Let's start with Bridgeport against Wilkes-Barre Scranton.
Against Wilkes-Barre Scranton, score first, win the first period. That's the big key for me. In 5 of their last 7 losses, Wilkes-Barre Scranton gave up the first goal of the game. On the season, they are 7-20 when giving up the first goal. They are 24th in the AHL in win percentage when trailing after 1 period. That's Wilkes-Barre Scranton. So getting on the board first and holding that lead through the first period is going to be huge, as Wilkes-Barre Scranton does not show a lot of battle back in those moments. The other big key is going to be to get the power play going. Bridgeport is at an 11% net power play percentage against the Penguins this season, which is especially weird as the Penguins are 27th in net penalty kill in the AHL this season. So the fact that they're getting stymied by one of the worst penalty kills in the league is bizarre. Like, Wilkes-Barre Scranton, I think, has half of their penalty kill percentage is just from Bridgeport because they're not stopping anybody else. The Sound Tigers are 11.8 in net power play in their last 5 games. So they clearly need to get this power play going. And if I had to pick a penalty kill for them to get going against, it would be Wilkes-Barre Scranton. So for them to have this much success in March and still not really do much on the power play, this is a good moment to kind of correct that course. Against Lehigh Valley, I'm saying pretty much the same thing I've said against teams who play Lehigh Valley this year. Forecheck, 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 forecheck. The Phantoms defense is by and large young, hasn't performed well under pressure under their own end. And I would emphasize that first forechecker getting pressure on the Phantoms defensemen during dump-ins, on rebound recoveries. They need to be finishing hits, but not chasing them. And, obviously not the I'm going to take 10 full strides from center ice and then just plow, but they need to be finishing checks too, just so that defensemen were aware, even if they get the puck off, that there was pressure there. That sends a good memory of, even if it's just a finished check, that okay, I still can't be screwing around with this puck on the wall because there was a dude right on me. They also need to make sure that against Lehigh Valley, they capitalize on mistakes. And that sounds obvious, but the Phantoms are a team that are going to make mistakes. They're going to make bad turnovers. They're not a good team. They've been doing so all season. But the key, though, is in these games to make sure you're converting those mistakes into scoring chances, and then ideally scoring chances into goals. But we've seen time and time again throughout, watching games this season, that one team will be dominating possession and the other one will be basically be feeding them pucks in the neutral zone. But because they don't turn those turnovers or those mistakes into scoring chances or rush opportunities or, in an ideal world, goals, they end up letting these bad teams kind of hang around and end up, giving away points in overtime or losing a game in a shootout that should never have been there because they were the better team, but they just couldn't turn bad mistakes into scoring chances and then scoring chances into goals. Against Lehigh Valley, they need to make sure that they don't let the Phantoms hang around, finish them when they make mistakes.
I like what you said there at the end about capitalizing on opportunities, because that's the Barry Trotz system in a nutshell. That's what they preach. We're going to limit the opposition's opportunities, but capitalize on our own. So you want to see that kind of make its way through the system as well. So when it comes to Bridgeport, you want to see them, able to play Barry Trotz hockey that allows them to get up there. So that would be great for the Bridgeport Islanders to do against Lehigh and even Wilkes-Barre-Scranton. I also like the forecheck. It's kind of like the Mike Tyson approach. Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. We'll get there. Punch them, figuratively speaking, in the face by getting up in their grill. Don't let them get out. Don't let them breathe, basically. And that's what they've got to do. They're not a particularly fast team, but I don't think they really need to be excessive or successful, that is, on the forecheck. They just need to be on those pucks and constantly working. And they do that. They will have success this weekend and maybe pull ahead of those WBS Penguins.
All right. Cece, picks?
Yes. And I say we defer to the guest. Mitch, what say you? Bridgeport taking 1 or 2 games this weekend, or do you have it the other way around?
I think the Bridgeport Islanders will take both games this weekend and extend that win streak, baby.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to scratch and claw like a sound tiger, as it were.
What is a sound tiger anyways? Is it just a tiger that sings?
Me. They're great.
That's it, right? That's a sound tiger.
That's a sound tiger. Tony's a sound tiger. Yeah, they're going to scratch and claw their way to a playoff position. I am picking a Bridgeport sweep as well, Mitch. So, yes. Sean, that leaves you. What say you, sir?
I'm super hesitant here because I realize how this is going to look when, all of us are picking Bridgeport sweeps. So, I kind of want to be the voice on the other side here, but I can't do it. I cannot do it. I'm going Bridgeport sweep, but I think they'll dunk on the Phantoms. But that game against Wilkes-Barre-Scranton is the one that I'm most concerned about. Although I will say the Phantoms, a 4 p.m. game after a night game that they have to travel to Bridgeport, I think there's a good chance they start slow in that one, but I don't have any faith in Lehigh Valley to win a game that it should. So I'm clearly taking Bridgeport in both here. The model is also on our side, so all 4 of us are taking Bridgeport
full sweep.
Bridgeport is a 51.4% favorite over Wilkes-Barre-Scranton on the road, so that's kind of a big deal. And they're a 52.4% favorite over Lehigh Valley at home.
Let's go. That's all I needed to know. Done. Weekend is set, boys.
I don't know. Have we ever had, I know with just Sean and I, we sometimes agree with the model in regards to sweeps, especially, but I don't know if we've ever had a 4-way, everyone picking a sweep. So
I I would have to go back and look at that. I don't think we have. So sorry, Bridgeport, for jinxing you.
It's all our fault.
Oh, yeah, that is totally a thing. Well, Mitch, once again, thank you so much for coming on the program. We really appreciate you bringing your insight and knowledge of not just the New York Islanders, but the Bridgeport ones as well. I didn't say it. I didn't say it.
A lot of gymnastics going on there, CC.
I've had a lot of practice, a lot of verbal gymnastics to get around it. Because Sean's like, nope, Sound Tigers. Nope. Join the resistance. Sound Tigers. Call it them.
Sound Tigers forever.
Yes. So, Mitch, where can the people out in the internet's land find your good work, sir?
You can find all of my written content on eyesoniles.com, all of my video content at Deckhands. That's my YouTube channel. Just search Deckhands, you'll find it. It's all about Islanders prospects. You can find all my voice or my vocal stuff. There we go. That's the word. Eyes on Isles, the podcast. And then we have a Patreon as well. And on Twitter, it's at TLO Mitch. Thank you, boys.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mitch. You have a good rest of your evening, bud.
Thank you, guys. Let's go Bridgeport. Yes.
All right. Well, that concludes our time here in the Bridgeport Sound talking about the Tigers. We're going to take a break here. After that, we will get to Laval and Abbotsford because that's a North Division weekend series that's happening. If you're just here for Bridgeport, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe to us wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. We'll be back Tuesday to break down this Bridgeport weekend. So you might want to get that as it comes out and not have to wait until, Thursday or something when it's old news at that point. Check us out on social media as well. Links to our social media, as well as links to our YouTube channel, popular podcast places, and a couple other things can be found on our Linktree page at linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. We're going to run some ads, pay some bills. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Thanks once again to Mitch Anderson over at Eyes on Isles for coming on the show and bestowing his Islanders knowledge. New York or Bridgeport variety.
Only one.
Only one Islanders team?
Only one Islanders team, only one island.
Gotcha. All right, well, let's move on to the North Division, and this is an interesting matchup. It's going from Quebec all the way to Abbotsford, BC. So Laval, the Rocket, heading to Abbotsford to take on the Baby Nucks Saturday at 7 p.m. and Sunday at 4 p.m. in Abbotsford. So, Sean, let's talk about the Rocket. You weren't very high, rather, on Laval not that long ago. What's changed between now and then?
I mean, my biggest concern when talking about Laval earlier, like 3, maybe 4 whole weeks ago, was depth. I didn't like their bottom end, their bottom 6 forward lines. I didn't like their bottom defensive pair. I was not impressed by them in a very George St. Pierre kind of way, which seems appropriate since they're all French. But that has changed a lot. Brandon Baddock is gone. Peter Abbotsford isn't their second line center anymore. Sean St. Amand is gone. Alexander Fortin is gone. Giovanni Fairbrother is gone. In the meantime, they added Cedric Paquette, Nate Schnarr, Justin Barron, Caden Primo is back, Devontae Smith-Pelly is healthy, Josh Brook is healthy, Corey Schoeneman and Jesse Ullinen, will return in time for playoffs. That's a very big shift in talent. And while you could make the case for Primo and Ullinen always being locks to return, Schnarr, Paquette, and Barron were certainly unexpected additions. And yes, Barron's in Montreal right now, and Paquette didn't play on Wednesday. So some concerns there, but still Laval, as we just talked about in the playoff, segment at the beginning of the show, Laval is a pretty safe lock here for a playoff spot. Whereas the Montreal Canadiens clearly not going anywhere fast. So they're going to get all of those guys back. I think Laval will be someone to contend with in the North Division playoffs once, they are at full strength. And even still right now, they have enough there to, keep things interesting till the end.
Yeah. And one of the guys you mentioned, the recent acquisition at the trade deadline, sending our Terry Lehkonen over to the Colorado Avalanche for Justin Barron. And, let's talk about him. I think it's safe to assume that fans of the Laval Rocket may not be that familiar with his game. And I guess that begs the question, when does he make his eventual Laval debut? And when he does, what should fans expect from him?
I mean, I imagine he's probably going to finish out the season in Montreal. That would be my estimation. But he'll definitely be in Laval for playoffs. There's no question about that. But Byram is someone whose raw skills just jump off the page when you see him play. He's got high-level skating. He's got a powerful shot that can beat goalies from mid-range. He moves the puck well in transition. He's capable of playing physical defense and making big hits. He's capable in his own end. He's shown himself to be a solid two-way defenseman in the AHL. And yet his decision-making leaves something to be desired. It's like we've said in the past, having raw skills isn't the same thing as wielding them well. As a developmental project, though, I would rather have a player who has raw skills and me teach them how to find the right moments, as opposed to me have someone with limited raw skills but great timing and awareness to have to train better mechanics or better physical skill into them. That one seems much harder. I would rather, bang out a fine piece of steel into a usable sword than turn clay into a meaningful weapon, if that makes sense.
That does.
And that's not to say that Byram hasn't taken big steps forward this season. He for sure has. As you see, he said a number of episodes back, his time paired with veteran defenseman and occasional forward Jacob McDonald, who I assume has his own stockpile of Szechuan sauce, helped slow the AHL game down for him. He's still only 20. There's plenty of runway left here for growth. But at the AHL level this season, I'd expect good things from him, especially as he gets his feet wet at the NHL level, and that gives him a very good kind of sense of what the speed of the game is. When you spend an hour driving on a 70-mile-an-hour highway, driving in the school zone seems a lot simpler. So I think we'll see that transition pick up really well when he comes back to the AHL. I still expect to see flashes of brilliance and him making highlight reel plays in the fall, but also at times occasionally leaving you, scratching your head a bit and wondering what exactly he was trying to do there.
Yeah, I talked with Blaine Pavine from the Hockey Writers. He had me on his podcast, Habs Unfiltered, and he brought up a good point. He said the Habs needed a right-handed defenseman, and because they're very lacking in depth regarding right-handed D-men, and so picking up Byram was a no-brainer. I mean, he's got a great ceiling, top 4 NHL defenseman projection, a lot of going from the blood clots to now, it's like, it's such a turnaround, and it's, I don't want to say it's miraculous because like you said, he had the raw talent, he had the raw skills. And so to overcome that health scare and to be something that Montreal can, like you said, play him for the rest of the season, then put him down in Laval for the playoffs. I'm going to say he probably doesn't go back to Laval after that. I think they're going to utilize him next season.
I could see either way. Like Montreal, if I remember correctly, and I'll pull this up here in a second as I talk and stall for myself here. If I remember right, Montreal has a lot of options in terms of what to do with their cap, the cap space they have allotted for next season. Yeah, they have 39. Okay, currently right now, they have $11 million. Oh, sorry, that's projected cap space. Oh, right, because they have the Carey Price contract. And yeah.
Oops.
Defensively, though, they still have a lot of guys coming back under contract last year. Petry, Savard, Joel Edmondson, Justin Barron, obviously, and then Jordan Harris. They have a couple of guys who are RFAs and UFAs. I expect, obviously, Alexander Romanov to return next year. So that's 5 defensemen already. They'll probably pick up somebody in free agency. I'm assuming Shea Weber is donezo for the rest of his life, which is unfortunate, but possible. So like I could see a world in which they pick up like another veteran D-man or two and send him back. But yeah, you're right. They don't have much in the way of right-handed defensemen here. So they probably will end up giving him some looks. But I could also see him playing, starting the season in Laval, maybe, doing a good 35 games there and then going back up to the big club and staying. I could see that path for him, but he'll definitely be there for the playoffs. And right now, that's all we care about.
There we go. Sorry, I'm looking too far ahead. I'm just projecting there. But anyway, let's talk about the other Canadian team in this matchup, and that's Abbotsford. The Abby Nucks have been missing a lot of big pieces due to call-ups and injuries. Justin Bailey, Nick Patan, Justin Dowling, Phil DiGiuseppe, all of them have been absent since at least March 13th. The Nucks have gone 4-4 in that span, earning points at a .625 percentage clip. That's not usually the story for a team that loses 4 big pieces like that. So keeping their head above water like that, how have the Abbotsford Canucks sustain this?
Well, number one is special teams here. Usually you lose that kind of firepower, your power play falls off a cliff. See Hershey, Hartford, Henderson, Tucson, etc. And while Abbotsford has certainly taken a dip, they're still at 17.1% net power play since March 13th. That's not great, but it's not terrible. Like, that's still a middle of the rung, power play. Penalty kill is the same story. Abbotsford is 86.2% in net penalty kill since March 13th. That's actually an improvement on their season-long net penalty kill. Albeit the Marlies did go 2 for 3 on Tuesday night this week, but that was 2 of the 5 power play goals they've given up since March 13th. Plus, they scored a shorty. So there's that working for them. Second is the great equalizer, the magic, the voodoo, goaltending. Aside from the past series against the Marlies, again, that one didn't really go their way. But the Abby Nucks have gotten quality starts from their goalies, whether that was Spencer Martin or Mikey DiPietro. In 5 of their last 6, not too shabby. Last is they've gotten good depth players to step up. Tristan Nielsen scored a hat trick to help power them past Manitoba. Madison Bowie has stepped up and produced. Yushin Hirano has too, been chipping in more than usual. And then, of course, there's Sheldon Dries, who's just refused to be silenced and has 8 points in the last 8 games they've played since March 13th. So there's that. All in all said, it's surprising that they've managed to be able to pull this off. But at the same point, they've gotten good contributions from, down the lineup, guys to step up in a way that other teams who have been shorthanded, like Hershey and Hartford, haven't had the benefit of because, well, their depth was not as deep.
And, first of a couple former Eagles players that are just balling out this season. Little foreshadowing there. Stay tuned. But the last time we talked about Sheldon Dries, Sean, and his scoring pace was on December 17th. So you said, Mr. O'Brien, and I quote, "Sheldon is a talented shooter. Don't get me wrong. And he probably got a bit unlucky shooting last year in Colorado, but sustaining a 28.9% shooting rate over a long period just isn't going to happen." End quote. Sheldon Dries is currently second in the AHL in goals scored with 34, one behind AHL leader in Stefan Nason. Sean, do you owe Sheldon and his mother, who follows us on Twitter, do you owe the both of them an apology?
Okay, first of all, how dare you use my own words against me? Second of all, I don't think so, and I'll explain.
Okay.
You were correct. I said those exact words. Shooting 28% was unsustainable. 28.9% was unsustainable. Since that recording, he shot 23.3%, an almost 20% drop in shooting percentage. I would call that proof of concept and regression to the mean, wouldn't you? My question whether Sheldon Dries could win the scoring title wasn't about talent necessarily. It wasn't about talent. It was a little bit about shooting luck. But here's another quote from that same episode. All that being said, Dries' goal scoring totals at the end are going to depend on how much that shooting percentage regresses and what his shot volume looks like. I don't think a top 5 finish in goals is outside his capabilities, though. He's definitely going to need to throw some more rubber on the net if he wants to get there and get a bit lucky along the way. I pointed out that guys who finished in the top 5 in AHL goals are ones whose shot per game average is closer to 3. His shots on goal per game average at the time that, that December episode was 2.36. And that was my concern, is he wasn't going to have the volume when that shooting percentage started to drop to be able to maintain that scoring pace. That shots per game total right now is 2.81. So he is very much picking up the throwing rubber on the net. That may not seem like much, but a half shot per game over the course of the season, that can add up and be the difference between finishing the season with 40 goals or finishing with 32. His talent was never the question, but anyone who finishes that high in goals scored in the AHL or the NHL or probably the ECHL too has good shooting luck to give them a boost, and they throw a lot of rubber on the net. I think Dries' shooting percentage continues to regress to the high teens, which is still a number I believe he can sustain. But I think he's going to need to finish the season with north of 185 shots on goal to win the goal scoring title. He has 135 right now. So basically the question becomes, can Sheldon Dries throw 55 shots on goal in the remaining 12 games Abbotsford has? That's a lot. I don't think he can, and I think he misses the scoring title because of it, but he still finishes in the top 5 for goals in the AHL. I think that's pretty much a lock at that point. But 55 shots on goal in the remaining 12 games for Abbotsford, that's a big ask of anyone. Not to mention also some of them have to go in. So I don't think he can sustain that kind of volume, not because he's not a capable shooter, not talented enough or whatever, but that's just a lot of volume to make up. And I don't think he, or realistically anyone that's not just flinging pucks from anywhere trying to meet a number, is going to do that. So I think Stefan Noesen is probably going to sustain the goal title.
Yeah, that's 4.5 shots per game for those that don't want to do the math. Sean is always told before every episode that there will be no math, but there's almost always math. So I lie to him before every episode. But anyway, enough about that. Let's talk keys to the weekend, and we're going to start with the Abby Nucks.
For Abbotsford, they need to start better. Plain and simple. In the 2 games against Laval this season, Laval owned the first period. They owned the first period. Some of that was because Abbotsford couldn't stay out of the penalty box after being shorthanded really kind of interrupted the flow of their offense. Regardless, being down 1-0 in the first intermission is not the place you want to be. Laval is 22-8 when scoring first. They're 13-4 when leading after 1. Abbotsford is 4-14 when trailing after 1. A good start is vital to winning against Laval this weekend. The other part I will say is for Abbotsford, when Caden Primo plays in a game, and it seems pretty likely that he plays at least one of them, be prepared for rebounds. Something I've noticed through watching Caden Primo play this season is he struggled with rebound control. If I'm Abbotsford, I'm not changing where I shoot from or how I shoot or anything like that. But if I'm standing at the net front or standing in the slot or something like that, I'm mentally prepared for rebounds to be there when I see a shot coming, because that's usually the difference of whether or not you get your stick on the rebound goes in, is were you prepared, or did it kind of just fall at your feet and you have this moment of like, oh, puck. That's what they need to be. They need to be prepared for those rebounds to happen, because Primo has been giving them up this season. Laval, the Canucks have been occasionally employing a 2-2 forecheck on the penalty kill. I personally hate this penalty kill forecheck. I don't think it's very effective, but Abbotsford, for some reason, has been breaking it out on occasion. The Marlies exploited it pretty well by getting speed behind the puck through the neutral zone and then kicking it to the sides. If I were Laval, I would look to replicate that. Also for Laval, stay out of the box. Last 3 games, Laval has given up power play advantages 5 times per game. It broke up a lot of their offensive flow and genuinely cost them Tuesday's game in Manitoba. For the season, Laval is 11th in the AHL for least number of power plays given up. They need to get back to that and get back to discipline hockey.
Okay, it's time for our picks, and I shall go first. It begs the question, the well dries up for Abbotsford? No, I don't think so. I think they string together a couple games and they get the sweep here.
Interesting. Mm-hmm. I feel a split here, even though I don't want to. I want to take Laval in both, but I'm going to go Abbotsford on Saturday, Laval on Sunday. I think that 4 p.m. second game start is a bigger advantage to Laval than it is to Abbotsford. The model, on the other hand, has Laval as a 57.2% favorite in both games. So they're pretty high on Laval right now.
Yeah, we'll see. Wow. Yeah. At least you're picking a split. I'm just going completely in the opposite direction with that.
To be completely fair, some of that number is powered by guys like Cedric Paquette, who have, 6 games played and have crushed through 6 games. Like, there isn't another season of his play at the AHL level to weigh down that number. So it's basically just capped at a sample size, but it's still really high. And that's what's powering a lot of Laval's team grade right now. And there's no way to regress that without some kind of context. We don't have it. So it's basically, we're just going to let the Cedric Paquette ride stop wherever it tells us.
Is that a short train ride or a long train ride? Only Cedric can really let us know. So anyway.
Yep, that is it for our time here. We are going to take a break. After the break, we will get to Chicago and Milwaukee. If you're just here for half of the North Division and half Pacific, an all Canada affair, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. We will be back on Tuesday morning to break this entire thing down. You'll probably want to listen to that on Tuesday as soon as possible. So subscribe. Also, check us out on social media where we have some fun. We do the memes. Also, links to that's our social channels, as well as all the places you can listen to us or watch us, as well as some other stuff are in our Linktree page at linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. We're going to run some ads, pay some bills. We'll be right back.
Okay, it's time to go over to the Central Division. Yeah, we're heading to the Western Conference. We're going to talk about the Chicago Wolves against the Milwaukee Admirals this weekend. Friday, 7 p.m. at Milwaukee. Saturday, 7 p.m. at Chicago. So a nice little home and home between the Wolves and the Ads. All right, in the 3 seasons that you've had graphs for penalty differential in the AHL, Shawnee, the graphs all subtly highlight that game management is clearly part of officiating. Only 2 teams across those 3 seasons have a penalty differential that's greater than 1 per game. The 2019-20 Tucson Roadrunners and the 21-22 Chicago Wolves. Do you think this is favorable officiating towards the Wolves, or is this a reasonable differential there?
So before I answer that, let's back up a little bit here and explain game management for people who I'm sure will understand what I'm saying, but may have not heard that term. So game management as part of officiating is basically the idea that you want to balance penalties out. So if you called 2 penalties on one team, regardless if they were the right call or not, you try and balance it to make sure that you call 2 penalties, on the other team. And that's what this graph basically shows, is that every team is magically within 1 penalty of the other. So they either get called for 4 penalties, but they get 3 power plays, or vice versa. Everyone falls kind of neatly on this beautiful diagonal line where they're all within 1 call of each other, which suggests very heavily that, referees are looking to make sure they even up the calls at the end of the game, more or less, because that's the way it's done. And that's really, really, really stupid. Call the penalties. That's it. Don't try and balance the sides. Don't whatever. Just call the penalties that you see. Now, I think that this is not favorable officiating for the Wolves, but rather sustainable. If the Wolves had like a super goonish roster and we saw these few calls go against them, then you might be on to something here in like a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. But the Wolves don't roster guys who are bad penalty magnets. Paul Dorowski doesn't take a lot of penalties throughout his career. His career high in PIMS is 34. Neither does CJ Smith. Career high is 26 PIMS. Josh Levo, career high is 44. David Gust, career high is 24. Kevin Fitzgerald, career high is 42. Stefan Nason leads the team with 74 penalty minutes, but 40 of those are either from fights or 10-minute misconducts. Joey Keane has a nice 69 penalty minutes, but 20 of those are from fights or 10-minute misconducts. 45 of Kyle Marino's 56 penalty minutes are fights and 10-minute misconducts. Jack Drury has almost a full 25%. 10 of his 46 penalty minutes are from fights. So a fair portion of the penalty minutes you do see called against the Wolves aren't even sending them to a penalty kill. They're just matching fighting penalties or a 10-minute misconduct, which basically is just a giant timeout. It hurts your team in the sense that you don't have Stefan Nason for 10 minutes, or you don't have Joey Keane for 10 minutes, which is bad, and we'll talk about that in a second. But by and large, like the penalties they're taking aren't ones that are sending guys to a penalty kill. So I can't say that Chicago purposefully recruited and targeted guys who don't take a lot of penalties, but if they did, that's really smart of them. And I congratulate their front office and hockey ops staff for having, that kind of foresight, because PIMs are bad, especially when they send your team to a penalty kill. Like I said, even in Stefan Nason's case, I'd want him to tone down the fighting in 10-minute misconducts. He's leading the league in goals and is 3rd in total points. And him being off the ice for 5 to 10 minutes is a detriment to the team. In all my years of watching hockey, I've never seen anyone score from the penalty box. Nason also occasionally kills penalties. So having him unavailable to do so because he took the penalty or is in the box for something else, not a great thing. The Wolves also very much play an up-tempo and skill style of game. Then they also have the horses to execute that very, very well. That's, that shouldn't come as a shock given where they are in the standings and the league leaders stats page, but still, that fast-paced, high-skill style is also hard to defend. So the idea that teams are getting burned on defense and taking penalties to try and slow the Wolves down or are getting frustrated in a one-sided game, that kind of isn't surprising. And not having to kill extra penalties is also a huge competitive advantage for the Wolves. Let's say the Wolves, instead of taking the number of penalties they do now and going to sending teams to power plays, that they took a league average number of penalties this season, or they were shorthanded a league average number of times. That would put them at about 34 more times shorthanded in their 61 games to date. Given their penalty kill percentage stays the same, we're talking about 6 more power play goals they'd likely have given up. Depending on where and when those 6 power play goals were scored against them, rather, we could be talking 2, maybe 3 wins coming off the board and becoming losses. That's a lot. There are a lot of teams that would absolutely love in the standings right now to have 2 or 3 more wins. If you rewind to our part about playoff probabilities, 3 wins would separate a lot of the pack in the North Division, Central Division, Atlantic Division. It probably wouldn't change the Pacific that much, but the idea that the Wolves have gained 3 wins by simply not having to kill 34 more penalties, that's good. They should continue to do that. And if they were smart and recruited guys that weren't going to be, penalty magnets, that was smart of them. And my hat's off to them if that turns out to be the case. I have no idea if it is, but it is kind of a coincidence that all of the guys they picked up as veteran signings, Paul Doralski, Gust, Nason, Smith, none of them are big penalty guys. Weird.
So you're telling me that the Chicago Wolves team is successful and continues to be successful without that enforcer, without 1 or 2 of those guys that are, willing to drop the gloves if somebody lays a big hit on them.
I mean, they have Kyle Marino, but he's played 15 whole games, and I'm pretty sure he's there solely for that reason. But they have guys up and down the lineup who can fight if necessary.
Right.
Nason, Keene, Jack Drury's dropped the gloves a couple times. If you're going to have guys that you insist on fighting dudes, then they have that, but they also have plenty of skill. They don't have. They don't regularly roster a one-dimensional brick boxer. Like some other teams that wear similar colors do.
Or other teams that are in the same division that may wear green. Anyway, moving on. All right. Individually here, they're in their biggest free agent signing since Wheelie Cart. If you know, you know. The Hurricanes signed 2020 second-round pick Noel Gunler to an entry-level contract recently. He'll be assigned to the Wolves for the remainder of the AHL season and the playoffs on a professional tryout. Sean, what can Wolves fans expect from Gunler? They're not familiar with him already.
Well, I mean, PTO, that'll definitely have him buying team dinners. I'm just kidding. They don't get paid on PTOs. Gunler reminds me a bit of what we saw from Jack Quinn last season in the AHL. There's talent there, but there were also a lot of question marks. There's no denying he has shooting talent, though. He can fire pucks with a release that's just downright disgusting. And he's going to snipe some shots from mid-range against AHL goalies in his time here. That is inevitable. His playmaking vision and puck skills also jump off the page when you watch him play. Those parts of his game are genuinely undeniable. Anybody who watches him for a game will see right away. They will know when Noel Gunler touches the puck. However, his skating has been a concern. It's not one that I personally share, but I've seen a lot of, scouts in the public sphere and stuff gripe about his skating or respond to gripes about his skating. I think it's fine, but that's, me, the non-professional scout. He also has consistency and work ethic problems. Again, I don't think that those are as big a deal as they're played out to be, but I've seen plenty of others out there in the public sphere who have. My bigger concerns are on defense and his ability to play in the tighter, more physical windows that is North American professional hockey. He's 6'2", but he's only listed at 176, which means he is taller than me, but weighs less than me. The SHL also plays on Olympic-size ice and is less physically grinding style of play than the AHL and NHL because you have so much more room to run around. That time and space you have in the SHL isn't going to translate to the AHL in that sense, but I do have a lot of faith he'll make those adjustments, but I don't think he does so on day one. I think it's likely the offensive skills he has will bleed through immediately, especially his shooting talent. But I could see a case for him struggling at first to find the score sheet. I think he'll probably have, a couple big highlight reel plays where he goes coast to coast or just absolutely, blasts one past a goaltender. But I think he will not be as effective right out of the gate. I also think he's probably going to end up playing third line minutes and second power play at absolute best to start. So there's that's going to handicap him. The good news is the Wolves also have another Swede in the roster in Jesper Sellgren, so that should help him get acclimated a little bit better. It's always nice to have, countrymen who can help translate if necessary or help, just introduce you to North America, as this will be pretty much his first time in country for more than, like a tournament. So big culture shock. It's very different here than it is in Chicago. So that'll be helpful, but I think he'll be moderately successful, have a couple of big splashy plays, but overall maybe not be what you were hoping for. And again, like I said, Jack Quinn last year in Rochester, that's how I think it was. You could see, some talent bleed through, but there were also other concerns. And some of those were injury with Jack Quinn that aren't present here. But I think the metaphor and the comparison holds a little bit.
And the Wolves being the only team not in the Pacific Division to clinch, quote unquote, a playoff spot at this moment in time, seems like the rich get richer.
I mean, clinch. There's no need for air quotes for clinch. Like, they clinched. They're now mathematically, like, they could literally, ice the Tucson Roadrunners roster and still make the playoffs. So yeah, there's that, which is nice. But like, Springfield is in, regardless of whether or not they have an X by the name. Like, they're not messing it. Same with like Milwaukee. Like, they're in. But yeah, mathematically, it's still possible if they lost every game.
I guess I put it in air quotes because it's like, did we really expect anything less?
Yeah.
Like they're going to get a playoff spot. They're going to probably win the Central Division. Yeah. They are going to win the Central Division. Who are we kidding?
So like, when Utica clinches, this weekend or next week sometime, we're not all going to go, oh, Utica got in? How did that? Yeah,
it's not a surprise, not catching anybody off guard in any sense of the word. All right, well, let's go from the Wolves and we'll head over to Milwaukee, who is currently sitting third in the Central. A surprising weekend sweep of the Admirals, unfortunately for Milwaukee fans. The Texas Stars last weekend took 2 games from the Ads. What was the big cause of that for the Admirals? And well, Sean, how do they fix it going forward?
The big problem was the Admirals bled rush chances, especially odd man rushes to the Stars. That's always going to spell a recipe for disaster. The Ads defense, by and large, is bigger and more physical. They're not built to defend speed, which Texas has a lot of. They also, we also talked numerous times about the value of shots off the rush and how like a very small percentage of shots taken total in a hockey game are off the rush, but how it's like a third or something like that of all goals are scored on rush chances. So shots off the rush are incredibly valuable. And that's why anytime you see a 2-on-1 or a 3-on-2 or whatever, and they don't get a shot on goal, it's like, oh, buddy, that's bad. Normally what sank their weekend last weekend, though, as we talk about the Admirals here, wouldn't really be a problem going forward unless it was a systemic issue. But it's worth noting here because the Wolves are very, very good at attacking off the rush, and they like to do so. So they're going to look to use their speed they have to attack the Admirals in the same way that Texas did, which is smart because it certainly seems like an area the Admirals aren't built for. So to take steps to correct that, we obviously aren't going to train the Admirals to be faster in a week. But it's going to take discipline, especially from the Admirals forwards, namely making sure you don't get caught in moments with 3 forwards behind the puck and play going the other way. You'll see this on occasion when teams are getting aggressive forechecking. They'll send all 3 forwards deep in the offensive zone. But if that forecheck whiffs instant odd man rush the other way. While it may not be as entertaining from a fan perspective or from me watching these games, playing a bit more conservatively on the forecheck, a little bit more boring to make sure you have numbers back is a smart move for the Admirals here. That's how you fix giving up odd man rushes, is discipline by your third forward, by your forwards in general, just making sure they don't get caught behind the puck. Being responsible here also means maybe playing a little bit more dump and chase than you would normally. Dump-ins are obviously safer plays, as it's a lot harder to spring a counterattack off a dump-in, and also ensures that your players, when the puck goes in, are between the puck and their net. So there's no chance to, pick off a pass in the neutral zone and take it the other way for a quick 3-on-2 or a quick rush chance the other way because, there's no puck.
We talked about one of Chicago's entry-level guys coming in, and now we're going to talk about one of Milwaukee's. The Predators, Nashville's rather. The Predators just signed Spencer Stastny, no relation to Paul. It's spelled differently. They signed him to an entry-level contract, and it seems pretty likely that he joins the Milwaukee Admirals on an amateur tryout or a professional tryout. Shawnee, what do you know about his game?
I haven't seen a ton of him during the season since I don't watch a lot of college hockey. We have to run the podcast and all of that stuff. But he plays a very simple kind of no-nonsense game. Decent skater, fair amount of poise under pressure, which is good. Makes a lot of smart but conservative decisions. He's not someone you're going to see making stretch passes from behind his net through the neutral zone to spring a guy for a breakaway. That's not his game. What I like most about his game is his ability to defend. He's good in transition, does a good job angling puck carriers into the wall, snuffing plays out. Not a physical guy, though. Typically won't lay the body when he can make a play with his stick instead. Offensively, there's not much to be excited about, unfortunately. He's an average at best shooter, and his playmaking vision is fine. But again, he tends to take more conservative approaches with the puck on his stick, looking to just kind of continue play for his team as opposed to, attack. He's not someone I expect to make aggressive plays off the blue line. I don't expect him to kind of, join the cycle off the blue line or push the pace in transition, but play kind of a quiet, mistake-free minutes when he's on the ice. I'm not quite sure where he fits in the depth chart with Milwaukee, but I think a bottom pair role and some penalty kill time will suit him well to start. I personally would look to pair him with someone who's a little more offensively daring, as I think he'll play a good counterweight to that. But like I said, I wouldn't expect fireworks from him.
All right. Well, with that said, let's talk keys to the weekend and see what it'll take for Chicago or Milwaukee to take one or two of these games and they're home and home.
Usually when we do keys to the weekend, we kind of break down Team A should do and what Team B should do, but we're going to go with an overlap here because I think there are two themes, and it's going to take, it's going to be which team takes control of that. That sets them up for success. I think the biggest keys here are going to be tempo and discipline. First, with tempo, the Wolves are going to want to play fast, and the Admirals likely don't. They want to keep the pace of the game at maybe like a 5 or a 6 out of 10, whereas the Wolves want to dial it all the way to 11. I think whoever controls the pace of the game for the longest stretches of the game is going to have a huge advantage. I don't expect one team to own pace the whole time. Flow of play goes back and forth a little bit, but you want to try and control as much of the pace as you can. For the Admirals, again, I think that's slowing it down, playing a little bit more dump and chase, grind on the cycle, a little bit slower speed, whereas I think the Wolves want to just go flying up and down the ice as much as they can. I think the other key is going to be discipline. We know that likely won't be a problem for the Wolves, but should they get into penalty trouble, the Admirals have the third best power play and net power play percentage in the AHL. At the other end, Milwaukee needs to win the penalty battle because their penalty kill is flat not good. It hasn't been good all season, and it certainly hasn't, trended up as we've gone through the year. And Chicago boasts the 9th best net power play percentage in the league. So discipline on both sides is going to be huge. Chicago is likely to win the officiating battle as they have for most of the season. They are an outlier in that aspect. But Milwaukee is going to need to keep their temper in check because they do not want to send Chicago to a power play with their penalty kill being what it is.
All right. Well, with all that said, it is time for the picks. I'll chime in first. With Chicago as good as they are and just, bolstering for reinforcements and everything like that, the way that they did at the AHL trade deadline, they're just too damn good. and I think that they're going to sweep the weekend against Milwaukee here.
I like the Admirals to take one here. I'm not sure which one, so I'm just going to play it safe and go home cooking for both teams. So I will take home teams in both. The model has Chicago as a 54.6% favorite in Friday's game in Milwaukee, and then Chicago is a 56.7% favorite in Saturday's game in Chicago. So a little difference of home ice advantage there. That's why I think, Milwaukee's probably, if they're going to take one, it's probably going to be the one at home.
Gotcha. All right. Well, 3 down, 1 to go. We're going to take a quick break here. After the break, we're going to go to the Pacific Division, and we're going to talk about Colorado and Ontario. But if you're just here for Chicago and Milwaukee, you like those Midwest teams there in the Central Division, we want to thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you can get episodes in a timely fashion. If we preview the weekend and then you don't subscribe and you don't know when the weekend recap is, what's the point? You got to recap the weekend if you preview it. Come on. Anyway, check us out on social media. Links to our social media as well as links to our YouTube channel and popular podcast links can be found at our Linktree page. You can see it scrolling below on YouTube if you're watching, but if you're listening, linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. We do the memes, and they're different across Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You got to pay attention. You got to subscribe to them all to really fully experience the Calder Farmstead. All right. Well, we had to pay for Sean flying to Sweden, jet setting over to Europe again from Canada. Eh? So we got to run some ads because we got some airline bills to pay. Thanks, Sean.
You're welcome.
Okay, over to the Pacific Division, the West Coast, the best coast, Colorado versus Ontario. Friday at 7 p.m., Saturday at 6 p.m., both at Ontario, because that would be a hell of a home and home if you had to fly back to Denver in between one of those games, or fly from Denver to Ontario, California, for that matter, in the span of a night. But anyway, let's start with the Eagles, shall we? Colorado found some power play success recently, albeit against perennial basement dweller in the Pacific Division, the San Jose Barracuda. That didn't quite translate to the Stockton game that they played soon after that, but let's be honest, the Heat have the best net penalty kill percentage in the AHL. So getting stymied by them is pretty much par for the course. Sean, did you see anything that makes you think that the Eagles' power play is trending up, though?
The biggest problem we saw from the Eagles power play the last time we talked about them was on zone entries and how they could kind of gain the line, but then couldn't get set up. It was those moments in between where it seemed like they couldn't figure it out. I thought they did a much better job of that against San Jose. But like you said, San Jose has one of the worst penalty kills in professional hockey right now. But I still think that confidence building, that you're executing well and you manage to make that work for you, I don't think that that's nothing. And I also think too that when I watched the tape of them in Stockton on the power play, I thought it looked better. Like I thought their zone entries rather looked better. Like they were still smooth, they were still gaining the zone, they were getting set up. I'm still not overwhelmed by their zone setup and the structure, the way they execute the power play once they get there, though. I think they spend too much time focusing on shots from distance instead of trying to collapse the penalty kill with good puck movement. Good shots from distance worked against San Jose, but that's not going to be effective against Stockton. It wasn't. It's not going to be effective against San Diego or Abbotsford or Bakersfield or any of them. So good puck movement to collapse the penalty kill, as well as looking east to west for one-timers across Royal Road and looking to the bumper spot to set up shots from the slot there. That would be what I would still focus on for them as a power play, and something that's still very executable. And they had a couple of moments where they did that, but by and large, it still seemed like kind of slow puck movement outside the perimeter and blasting shots from distance without a whole lot of movement or a lot of setup. It was basically, can we get that one penalty killer out of my shooting lane? If yes, then shoot. And I don't think that that's necessarily the best strategy for them, and it's not going to provide them with long-term success on the power play.
No, and when they do that, when they do collapse the penalty kill, either with Kiefer Sherwood or Dylan Sekura, like those major players on that first power play unit, like it is a sight to behold. Like when they finally cash in and they get that power play goal after doing exactly what you just said, it is a thing of beauty. And they just need to do it more often. And they need to not just have that first power play unit be the one to do it, but to keep the puck in the zone, to cycle it around, and to really, set it up to where you can get the goalie out of position and make a Royal Road pass and get a Kiefer Sherwood one-timer, get a Dylan Sekura one-timer. You've seen it. They have the capability. They can do it. They just need to be consistent with it. So anyway, with all that said, let's talk individuals here. And this was I didn't expect it. This was unexpected news for me here in the Denver area. Defenseman Bowen Byram has been loaned for a conditioning stint to the Colorado Eagles. Byram, pretty well documented concussion problems that plagued his professional career up to this point. Per the NHL CBA, Byram is allowed to be on the Eagles for a maximum of 14 days. There is no minimum, but it seems likely he'll play this weekend slate at the least. He's never suited up for the Eagles before. So last time a guy had a conditioning stint in Loveland, it was Pavel Francouz. Eagles ended up winning 3 of their 4 games. Obviously, it's a goaltender. It's a little bit different this time around. But with all that said, what should the folks in Loveland expect from Bowen Byram, clearly an NHL talented defenseman?
Assuming his concussion symptoms are behind him and everything is a green light from that perspective, which I'm assuming that's the case, that we're not, kind of doing what the Stars did with Ben Bishop, where they're like, we're not sure if you can still play, if your body's ready. Go figure it out, for a game in the AHL. And very quickly it was like, nope, no, it's not. I don't think that's what they're doing here. I would see no reason for them to take that kind of risk with Bowen Byram, given, the difference in pedigree and age and all that, blah, blah, blah. But assuming that he's completely fine from concussion syndrome or from post-concussion syndrome and anything like that, and this is straight up just, we need you to, get back up to game speed, I'd expect fireworks. At the AHL level, I expect Bowen Byram to look from the second he touches the ice that he, capital D, capital B, doesn't belong. He can do things that others in the AHL quite simply cannot. You remember how dominant Scott Perunovich was, the Scott Perunovich pain tour, as we dubbed him, right? I think Bowen Byram's a step ahead of him. He's a high-level skater who sees the ice in ways most players only dream of. He's got a lethal shot and will very likely score a goal or 2 from distance. He's also an excellent defender. He can lay the body with the best of them. He can shut down plays in the neutral zone. He's great in all 3 zones. And at the AHL level, I imagine he's going to look like someone turned the difficulty on rookie mode and is just going out there and having a ball. I expect to see a supremely talented kid who's battled back through a lot to get back on the ice and is probably just dying to go out there and put on a show, and he has the talent to do so. So if Bowen Byram goes this weekend and everything is green light from a healthy perspective, I'm expecting absolutely nothing short of him lighting everything on fire.
You have the Scott Perunovich pain tour on one hand. Welcome to the Bowen Byram Basham Bonanza. Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome. All right, let's talk Ontario. The Reign are a bit shorthanded right now. Gabe Vilardi is in LA. So is Jordan Spence, Rasmus Kuparty, and Jacob Muvirara. Jarrett Anderson Dolan just got called up. Martin Furk has missed the last few games. Just had to take a breath in the middle of that. So has Tyler Madden. Alex Turcotte has missed more than that. And yet the Reign are 5-5 in their last 10 games. Kind of similar to Abbotsford here, suffering all those losses to a lot of top-end guys, and yet they're still keeping their head above water, at least treading, close to that 500 level. That's not ideal, obviously, but given the circumstances, that does seem impressive. Sean, tell us, how have they done it?
I mean, that's what makes the Reign scary, isn't it? That's eight guys that play important roles on the team who are essentially MIA right now in Ontario. They just break out the Mark Donk card, and it's fine. And if you have no idea what that means, go Google Mark Donk, and you'll probably find the infamous tweet I'm referencing here. Seriously, though, Vlad Tkachev has stepped up and filled the gap in production. Thomas Hickey has fallen right into line and is producing on the back end. Aiden Dudas has sprung to life and has 4 points in his last 4 games. Akil Thomas looks like his old self for the first time this season. The Reign are crazy deep. So when 8 guys are down, they still have more talent buried somewhere they can go dig up to keep the wagon moving until the Kings send reinforcements. It's almost as if their GM realized he didn't need a barrage of one-dimensional tough guys wasting roster spots. What a concept, right? Oh, and the Reign still have the reigning AHL MVP and a guy you may have heard before, Mr. TJ Tynan. Tynan absolutely refuses to let things like line mate injuries or coaching changes or reality slow down the pace in which he dunks on the AHL. Tynan has a very good shot to repeat as AHL MVP, something that hasn't happened since 1986. I was not even born yet when this happened.
Me neither.
Fun fact, the last guy to do it, he might be a future podcast guest. Stick around for that little teaser there. I am also morally obligated to mention that the Reign's schedule, the back half of March, wasn't too shabby. Some San Jose, a little bit of Grand Rapids, 4 out of 6 at home. Not April, though, as they have Colorado and Stockton right off the hop. So how that depth has held up, we're going to find out if it's, for real, very, very quickly here. Also, Ontario had some good puck luck as well. Their rolling PDO has been over 100 for 4 straight weeks. Not like wildly over 100, but still, to have some depth come up and do good things and to not be on a spring of bad luck, that definitely helps your case.
Okay, time for the keys. Sean, since it's my home market, if you don't mind, I can take Colorado. Thank you very much. All right. First key, don't fall down early, Eagles, but if you do, okay, on March 26th, the Eagles were down 4-1 against San Jose after 1 period. They scored 6 of the next 7 goals in the game to win 7-5. During that comeback, they potted 2 shorthanded and 2 power play goals. Granted, again, as we've said multiple times already, this was against the Barracuda, but if the Eagles find themselves in a hole again, don't panic. Try and bolster those special team units and start finding the opportunities out there. Like we said during the team portion of the show, if you get the power play clicking and you just get the penalty kill to collapse a little bit, you're going to find success. Second, no Eustace for all. In that previous game, Eustace and Noonan allowed 4 goals on 10 shots. You heard me right. 4 goals on 10 shots. If you're watching on video, you just saw Sean pop a blood vessel in his neck from the scrunchy face that he made on that. Yeah, there he goes again. Hunter Miska. That's a name you haven't heard a whole lot in Eagles country. Hunter Miska came in and helped Colorado come back to win again against San Jose, but still, Miska won the next game against San Jose and the next game against Stockton. That's impressive. I'm fine with interjecting the kid Eustace in every 2 or 3 games down the stretch here, but playoff series are often won with the hand of a hot goaltender. And in my opinion, if Miska is hot, he's on a 3-game winning streak. Keep riding him.
On the Ontario side of things, I only got 1 key here. Don't take your foot off the gas. You did it against Grand Rapids, and they took you to OT, and you almost lost that game to Grand Rapids. You did it against San Diego, and they buried you. You can't be taking time off here against a talented Eagles team, or they will bury you too. You need to make sure that it could be 3-1, 4-1 in the 3rd period. Don't care. Keep scoring. Put your foot on the gas. Do not try and play prevent, because if there's one thing that Ontario can't do, it's play prevent defense. They are not built for prevent defense. They're meant to play 60 minutes of fast-paced, scory kind of hockey. That's what you need to do. That's what they should do. Don't take your foot off the gas.
Take a page out of Stockton's book and put up a 10 spot on Colorado. That's how the Heat clinched their playoff spot was defeating the Eagles 10-3. So take a page out of their book if you're willing to be successful. With that in mind, I'm going to pick, and I'm going to say Ontario on Friday, and I'm going to say Colorado on Saturday. Sean.
I don't have to try and figure out, splits here. I think the Eagles win one of them. I don't know which one, so I'm just going to take the Eagles in both. I'm just defaulting Eagles in both, because I think Ontario probably wins one here. But I think Colorado definitely wins one. So I don't want to try and play pick'em games and get both wrong because I mixed the splits up. I'm taking the Eagles to sweep. So me and the model are on the same side here. Colorado is a 52.2% favorite in both games.
Man, you got to love when the model favorites the teams that are on the road. It's like, oh, home ice advantage? Bah.
I mean, the model just basically is like, oh, we see your depth problems there. And yeah, you're getting some contributions. And yeah, your PDO isn't crazy. But yeah.
I'm guessing the model didn't account for Bowen Byram.
No, Bowen Byram is not in the model.
So that's probably closer to 59 or 60% after Bowen Byram.
I mean, but like, that's the other thing too, is like the trade, like the day when new players come in, like the trade deadline is definitely going to be one of the least accurate weeks of the model, just because it's a lot of players in new places where it's like, okay, this guy has like one game played before the weekend. He didn't score, so I guess he sucks, right? Like that's the model's way of viewing it. And there's really no way to try and correct for that. Like giving them their production from their previous team's a stupid choice because they're going to play in a different role in a different system and all that. Like it's weird. Anyway. And yeah, there's no Bowen Byram because what would I put in there for numbers? He's never played in this league.
And he's an NHL caliber guy, which the AHL model can't account for, you know? So.
I mean, like, I guess I could do translation factor. Okay, we're getting way too into the weeds here with Matt. We're going to take a break here. After the break, we will get to the speed round. If you're just here for Colorado and Ontario, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to us from so you get episodes in a timely fashion. We will be back Tuesday morning to break down this weekend series, so you probably want to catch that as soon as it comes out, right? It'd be a shame if you didn't realize it was there until like Thursday afternoon. And that point, like, well, you might as well just listen to the weekend preview for the next weekend. Anyway, check us all the links that you can find us at in our social media, as well as the places you could listen to or watch us. Scrolling down below on YouTube, but for the audio version, it's linktr.ee/the Calder Farmstead. We're going to run some ads, pay some bills. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
All right, it's time to get a big stretch, crack the neck a little bit, and finish strong because it is time for the speed round. All right, weekend series, Bakersfield and Henderson, Friday at Baco, Saturday at Henderson. I say home cooking, Baco on Friday, Henderson on Saturday in that shiny new $1 loan center.
With that goaltending? Condor sweep.
Belleville at Springfield Saturday and Sunday. Back and forth Belleville as of late. I say Springfield on Friday, Belleville on Saturday.
I don't like Belleville without the pieces they lost. Michael Del Zotto is going to chase Lisa Ann somewhere else, so I say Springfield takes both.
Hershey at Charlotte Friday and Saturday. Where are all the Bears? I say checker sweep.
Charlotte denies a 3,000 win, so sweep.
Rochester at Cleveland Friday and Saturday. Monsters. These monsters aren't scary, but Friday I'm going to say Cleveland. Saturday Rochester.
No, I ain't got time for that. Amherst sweep.
Texas at Grand Rapids Friday and Saturday. Texas is making a push, but I say Griffins on Friday, Stars on Saturday.
I agree. I'm going to go Griffins Friday, Stars Saturday.
Iowa at San Diego Friday and Saturday. California knows how to win. I say goal sweep.
I'm going to take a split here. I will take Iowa on Friday.
Toronto at Manitoba Friday and Sunday. Marley's putting it together once again. I say Toronto sweeps.
I agree. I'm going to go with that as well. Marley sweep.
Rockford at Tucson Friday and Saturday. No, I'm going to say oink. Rockford sweeps.
I agree again. Rockford sweeps.
Hey. Okay. San Jose at Stockton. Saturday at Stockton. Sunday at San Jose. San Jose and Stockton. Sorry. San Jose can't get the Yobs done. Stockton sweeps.
I want to disagree because that joke was terrible, but yeah, Stockton sweeps.
All right. Individual games here. Friday, Belleville at Hartford. I'm going to say Wolfpack.
I'm just picking the opposite now because I agreed 3 times in a row. I'm going Belleville here.
Wilkes-Barre Scranton at Lehigh Valley. Do I have to choose? I'm going to say WBS in the rivalry game.
Penguins drop the chandelier. Wilkes-Barre.
Springfield at Providence. P-Bruins need a dub, and I say they'll get it.
Disagree. T-Birds.
Syracuse at Utica. Crunch need a statement win against the Comets, but Utica denies them.
Nah, Comets are slipping and the Crunch are hot. Give me Syracuse.
Oh, okay. Saturday, Syracuse at Hartford. Crunch bounce back.
I'm taking Crunch as well. Big.
Utica at Lehigh Valley. Comets on the road.
Yeah, Comets. There's no way I'm picking the Phantoms.
Sunday. Texas at Chicago. Texas they have won once against Chicago this year. I'm going to say they make it twice on Sunday.
Everything's bigger in Texas, including losses to the Wolves.
Grand Rapids at Milwaukee. Griffins win a close one in the Brew City.
I disagree. I say Admirals in a sloppy game, like a 2-1.
Oof. Syracuse at Providence to finish things up. I'm going to say P. Bruins.
Going crunch again. I believe in Syracuse is hot. Let's go.
3 minutes and 11 seconds.
It's not
pretty average. Yeah, we're not speeding through it like we did. I think we did like 2 minutes and 13 seconds a few weeks ago. That was ridiculous. We were just geared for speed. No substances even. Yeah, I know Sean's alluded to that a few times, but we are clean and free here, at least while we're recording on the Calder Farmstead. So, alrighty. Well, that'll do it for this week's episode. Well, this week's weekend preview, that is. We do 2 a week for those keeping track at home. Thank you for watching and or listening. The Calder Farmstead is part of the Full Press Radio Network. You can listen to this and several other great hockey, sports, and even pro wrestling podcasts at www.fullpresscoverage.com. Just click the podcast drop-down menu in the top right portion of the website. That's the huge list of programs that you could listen to populating, and then you can enjoy.
And if you guys are enjoying the Calder Farmstead, please make sure you subscribe so you get episodes in a timely fashion. Also, if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon, please rate and review the podcast. Or if you're watching on YouTube, like the video, comment what you thought of the episode. Doing so helps others find the show, and your reviews help us improve it. You can also follow the show on social media at Calder Farmstead on Twitter and at The Calder Farmstead on Instagram and Facebook. Links to all of that and more can be found on our Linktree page at linktr.ee/The Calder Farmstead. Big thanks to Adrian Drake who made our theme music. You can find him on social media at AD_dysfunction. That's AD_DYSFUNCTION. So he can make music for you too. CC, where can the people find you?
My name is CC Hockley. You can find me representing Full Press Hockey on Twitter at FPC_AHL and at my personal Twitter account at CCHawk. That's SEESEEHAWK. Mostly tweet about hockey. Big surprise there. But if you want to know how my Wordle scores are every day, or my takes on classic rock, music, films, etc., if it keeps me interested, my hope is it's not going to be bullshit for you. Check out my writing on the Full Press Coverage Network at fullpresshockey.com. Sean, enough about me. Where can the people find you?
I'm Sean O'Brien. You can find me on Twitter at SeanO'Brien81. That's SeanO'Brien81. I'm also on Instagram at SeanO'Brien_81. My Instagram is not that active, but I do a story every day that is the jersey of the day, because I have a ridiculous jersey collection that actually grew today by 3. So there's that. But you can find my stats work at Tableau at bit.ly/data-dump-and-chase, all lowercase, all one word. CC, take us home.
That will do it for episode number 94 of the Calder Farmstead, an AHL podcast. For Sean O'Brien, I'm CC Hockley, and I have a kind of a major announcement. So this is going to be my last episode here on the Calder Farmstead. And I am leaving the show. And if you believe that, you forgot what day it was. For Sean O'Brien, I'm CC. Thanks as always. Keep your stick on the ice. Gotcha, Sean.